Hi, guys. I am so excited for this interview. I can't tell you, I have been wanting my friend Sonia to be on my YouTube channel for so long. And when I started this series, I was like, I have to have her on right away. So this is Sonia. I've known her for, it feels like forever, but I don't even think it's been a year yet. But she's so passionate and she's going to talk about things that we should know about our taxes and how to save money. So, hi, Sonia. How are you?
Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to share who I am and hopefully drop some gems for the audience.
You're gonna I have questions for you, but I know like when we talked about it beforehand, I mean, all the gems that she was saying, I literally had smoke on my pen. I'm like, hold on. I knew that this would be such a great interview. So we're gonna do this differently. Instead of being like tips that I asked my previous guests, I want to just ask you questions because sometimes when I cover different financial topics on my channel, taxes comes up. And I don't talk about anything that I am not that's not my expertise. So I again have been waiting for this. So I've got a few questions and topics that come up and I'm like, I'm just gonna pick your brain. You ready?
Awesome. Let's go for it.
All right. All right. And I'm going to be looking down at my notes because I want to make sure I don't forget anything. So, so can you give one tip on how anyone on their own can save money on their taxes?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Mhm.
I will say, like, a really good tip to have in making sure is that you're updating your filing status. And what I mean by that is that depending on your situation, given that if you're getting married or are married or are divorced, you want to make sure that you're updating your tax filing status, because when you file your tax return, we want to make sure that we are giving you the appropriate deduction so that you're not, basic so that the deduction is reflected based on your filing status. And you'd be very surprised how many folks just tend to forget whenever their situation has changed to update their W-4 through their employer. So it's very important that you are updating that so that you're also, again, making sure that you are getting the appropriate deduction applied on your tax return, but also making sure that you are making the appropriate tax payment through to the IRS based on your filing status.
Okay, so let's say like when I married my husband, so I didn't just need to let my tax professional know when it was time to file my taxes. I needed to let my employer know as well, right?
Correct.
Okay. See, I'm like, it's already one. It's like, boop, there goes a gem. There's a lot more. Okay. I'm like, yes. I can't tell you how much I wanted to have you on. Okay. Tax planning. It's something that I've heard the term be thrown around. I'm sure the viewers have as well. So my first question is, what is it? And then the follow-up is, how do you use it to help your clients save money?
Oh, yes. This is like my favorite topic. So, tax planning basically it just gives you an overview of what your potential taxable income and your tax bill will be for that year. So, for example, now that we're in 2022, we're almost towards the end of the year. You want to make sure that you are accounting for all the income that's coming to you and that you are paying the appropriate tax payment based on the income that you will be reporting in your 2022 tax return when you file for next year. So tax planning is very beneficial for those who have multiple streams of income. So if you have, your primary job, but you also have a side business or even a side gig, if you have investments that you sold off recently within the current, within that tax year, you want to make sure that you're factoring in the capital gain or the capital loss on that investment. And basically what tax planning does, where is we account for all the income and then we then apply potential tax deductions that you may qualify based on your situation, because everyone's situation is different and can vary. So with this, it just gives us an idea like, okay, based on the income that he or she will be receiving for the year, this is the potential tax deductions or even tax credit that he or she may qualify for. And then we're going to then calculate it and give you an estimated tax bill. And then we also provide you a calculation of what you're paying based on your employer. Like, for example, obviously when you receive your paycheck, you see the taxes that's reflected on your paid stuff.
Unfortunately, it's a lot. Yep.
But it's very helpful because that to us as tax professionals, it gives us an idea how much you're paying on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And it just gives us like what your potential tax payment will be in that for that year. And that just gives us an idea whether or not you're paying enough or if you're paying under, and what can we do to actually make sure we're paying enough so that you're not caught off guard the following year when you file your tax return. If you ended up with a tax bill, we want to make sure you're staying proactive with that, because especially if a tax bill is over $1,000, best believe they're going to penalize you for underpayment and the interest on top of that. So we want to make sure that our taxpayers are being, proactive and stay on top of that. Because again, we're already paying enough. You don't want to keep paying them through penalties and interest to the IRS. Enough is enough. So this is why tax paying is very important, because it avoids all of that.
I have a funny story for you. It just, as you're telling me that answer, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this with you. I don't think I have yet. So my first job, right? It was a retail store and I was a cashier, and they gave me the W-2 to fill out. And so I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. My first job ever. I think it was back then, minimum wage was like not even a third of what it is now. It's insane. But anyway, I'm aging myself. No, forget it. So it was, I'll never forget it. So it said, how many dependents do you have? If you have one, if you want to claim yourself, write one. So I wrote one. And then it was like two other questions, and it said like, how many people are you claiming? Is it, if it's you, write one. So I wrote one. At the end, it said tally it. So I put two. So the whole year I worked, and the first year I didn't get a refund at all. And I just thought it was just normal, right? I went to like the brick and mortar places and I got my taxes done. I didn't get anything. Then all of a sudden, like in the middle of the next year, I got a letter saying I owed money because of my they were questioning my status, that I something like they knew I did it wrong. And I was like, what's going on? So by the time I went to file my taxes again, I owed big time. I had to get on a payment plan with the IRS. And I was like, and then when I went to my next job and I told my employer, like, yeah, like I'm afraid of this form. I don't know what I'm doing. And she's like, oh, you claimed yourself twice. Like, that's what you did. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So she was like, no, if you want to claim yourself at the end, just put one. Like 1 and 0 is 1. I was like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I had to get on a payment plan at my minimum wage job to pay back the IRS because of one little mistake I made on the first form I ever had to do, thinking I was like an adult.
I will say that now the W form actually has changed, so it's actually a lot simpler now. Good. It's basically asking you what your filing status will be for that year, and then right below in the next section, it does ask like if you have any dependents, and if so, just mark how many, and that's it. For most people who don't have kids, the new W-4, you just enter in your filing status. In this case, will probably be single if you have no dependents. Yeah. And it just easy peasy, and that's it. Just check off that box and sign it off. Now, for those who have dependents, well, make sure that you are putting in the correct or the appropriate filing status. So in this case, if you are married, and you obviously will put in married filing jointly or married filing separately. And then you just note down how many dependents you have. And then that's it. Now, if you are single but you have dependents, then you just make sure that you are claiming head of household. So it got a lot simpler, but I definitely remember back in my days, in early 2010, when I first filled out my W-4, I was like, what is all of this? Like, this just like enter in one if you have one dependent. I was like, what is all? And obviously my employer didn't even educate me on. So I was just putting in like, okay, I'm just gonna put 2 because it makes sense. And then lo and behold, when I filed my tax return, I got hit with a tax bill, a huge tax bill. So I was like, just like you, I had to get on a payment plan. But
I was still in high school, and not only was I still in high school, like obviously I didn't have a credit card. Obviously I didn't have a car payment. Like my first debt was to the IRS. I'll never forget that. It was just something I haven't even ever mentioned on my channel before, but yeah, because of one little simple mistake. So that's why I'm like so glad you're here. So, okay, that's awesome. Okay. So speaking of the brick and mortar places that we go to, like for example, I don't want to like talk bad about them, but I'll give you an example, like an H&R Block. So why do you think that, like, why do you suggest that someone go to a tax professional like you compared to like a brick and mortar place, like an H&R Block?
So H&R Block and obviously the other competitors out there, their primary goal is to meet their quota, like their
Yeah.
the amount of people they get, the more money they're going to generate.
Makes sense.
So, and the quicker you can get the returns, the better. So that way, more people you can get done, the more returns you can file, the more money you can collect. And it's very sad because it's usually typically you're in and out of the door within 20 to 30 minutes, maybe even less than that. And you're just signing off the dotted line without actually being informed what's on your tax return. Because you'd be very surprised. I had numerous people who had came to my office freaking out because they got a letter from the IRS stating that there was something, there was like either there was some error, or they were asking for additional information because what they had on that tax return was what they had signed off. And sometimes that's not accurate. So it freaks the taxpayer out. And when they're trying to reach out to a brick and mortar, sometimes they're either closed after tax season is over, or sometimes they just go ghost. And it's not good, because taxpayers are paying these brick and mortars to help them. But if they're not helping them in return, then they're on their own and they feel helpless. And so they're trying to resolve this issue with the IRS. But whenever they try to, this happens a lot too. Whenever they go to an IRS office, the IRS is going to grill them. Like they're going to grill the taxpayer. And if they have no idea what the hell's on their return, at the end of the day, the IRS is going to look at you as being liable, because you ultimately are the one who signed off that return, consenting to the information that was on it. So in my establishment, what I do is I treat everyone beyond what brick and mortar does. I actually sit down and educate my clients what's on their tax return, because not only is my name on it, but the taxpayer's name's on it too. And I want them to make sure that they understand what's on their return before signing off, because I want them to know exactly what's on it, but also be in agreement, saying like, yes, I totally agree with this based on the information they provided to me. If we are both in alignment, then we both sign it off, and then we submitted it off to the IRS for review. So, and I really want taxpayers, especially the ones who come to my door, to be well informed, and also just feeling comfortable what's on their tax return. Because obviously no one likes getting letters from the IRS. I don't even like getting letters from the IRS because it can be very daunting and scary.
Intimidating. It's intimidating. Yeah.
It can be very intimidating on top of that. So, but I always reassure my clients, like, if you get a letter, please let me know. It can be fixable. So most of the time it can be fixable, but just know that, I am here. If you ever need me, you are paying me at the end of the day to help you. So I'm here for it. Unlike these brick and mortars, because they're a legacy company like H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt. They're well known, but they don't give you that one-on-one service where they're willing to help you and hold your hand when needed. So that you can say that's why I'm different from these brick and mortar, because I'm not someone who's going to see you as dollar signs walking in my door. No, I see you as someone who is ready to learn about how taxes work and learn any ways to help reduce their tax bill, or even in this case, try to look for ways to use some of the strategies that many of, you can say like the high income earners or even the millionaires are using, so that they'll able to utilize those same strategies and depending on their situation to help benefit them, so that way they can take advantage of the tax code. So that's kind of like my take.
She just said something right there. Because I can tell you, like, tax code is something I hear when I'm listening to something about, like, what the millionaires are doing. They know the tax code. They know what to do. They know how to save money. They know how to, like do things legally and save money, you know, and we don't, like, we don't. And I have to say personally, like I've actually referred friends to Sonia, and one friend that I referred to Sonia got back to me and they were like, "Are you kidding me? Like, not only did she finally educate me on what I needed to do with my taxes, but she saved me a ton of money." And I'm like, I refer everybody with taxes to Sonia because there's a difference. Like that's why I asked, because I know personally, like there's a difference between, which I have in the past many years in a row, gone to a place, sat down, felt like I was just a number, like had my taxes done, and then off on your own. And now that I have my business, last year was the first time I learned how about business taxes, and I asked the questions I wanted to ask. But because I didn't go to Sonia, which is going to change next year, but because I didn't go to Sonia, like I told her afterwards, I was like, I was kicking myself because it was just something like I wanted to get it done early and I knew she was busy. I should have reached out, because I really felt like, even though it was, you know, it's not like a huge establishment like an H&R Block, I did feel like at the end the person was like, okay, you good with questions? Okay, bye, kind of, you know, see ya. And I was just like, and I looked at my husband, I was like, this is why we're not going back here. And my previous experience with the H&R Block, one thing that I took away, which I thought that was kind of strange, was that I mean, it might have changed. It's been a very long time since I've gone to them. But in when they give you your tax documents, like, you know, your copy to take home, it had it on the outside, it had like a guarantee, like if the IRS like contacts you and you know, we'll review your documents for free, or there was like some kind of guarantee. And I was like, I'm not buying a car. Like, I believe in warranties. Like I always have, like, my husband and I do the research before we buy a warranty for something, like, you know, like our washer or dryer, like, is it worth it? This and that, like, or am I just like throwing money out the window? But I was like, why do I need a guarantee on my taxes? Like, I paid you, I'm your client. Like, it should be done correctly the first time, you know? But you genuinely care. And I have to say that, like, you genuinely care and you want to educate, because I can tell you that that feeling of I'm happy that I'm getting a refund, right? And I'm happy with the amount, but don't ask me how he got it. Like, I know the information I needed to provide to him, and I did efficiently. Like, I'm a money coach, so I'm like, numbers are my jam. I'm on it. I was actually the first one that gave him the papers, and he called me. He was like, "You got another month to go before I'm going to take on clients." So I was like, "Oh, get him first." but don't tell me what he gave me back. Like, I mean, I understand it, but if someone were to come back to me and be like, you know, how did he get these numbers? Like, what did you do to save money? I'd be like, I don't know. Like, that's why I talked. That's one of the reasons why, like, I pick your brain, because you're so sweet. And, like, you know, since we're friends, like, I throw you a question now and then, because I'm like, am I doing this right? What can I do to save money? You genuinely care. And that's something, like, I want everyone to know. Like, I don't put people on this show because I just want to do a collab with someone. Like, I put people on this show that I genuinely believe in. And Sonia is on top of the list, honestly.
Oh, I really appreciate that, Debbie. I mean, I've seen this a lot when there's definitely a gap between taxpayers and tax professionals, because taxpayers are just signing off whatever the tax professional is just putting down on their return, and not realizing, like, okay, it could be that they made an error, or it could be they inflated some numbers, and that's going to ding the red flag to the IRS. So this is where I realized during my first 2 years in business, that there was a lot of misconstrued information out there, and also because taxpayers just have no idea. They're all about, oh, I'm here to get the maximum tax refund. But I'm like, okay, well, hold up, like, you just, before we get too crazy with the whole tax refund, do you understand how a tax refund works? Because most of the time it could be because you overpaid the government an extraordinary amount, and they
I
just
have a question about that. I have a question about that. Oh, don't believe me. We're going there. We're going there. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's just a lot of stuff. And that's why, at least for me, I realized, like, this is where I have to educate my community. And just so you guys know, I primarily help the BIPOC community, and that's like Black, Indigenous, and people of color, because those are people who are mostly are misinformed about how taxes work. And this is where I'm trying to go in and try to inform them that, in reality, tax refund is not the best case. And if anything, let's try to aim for breaking even or at least to a small refund, because you ultimately are giving something to the government to hold on at 0% interest. And on top of that, too, like you want to make sure you feeling what's on your return, because you don't want to keep signing off something and then you get a letter and then you're trying to dispute it with the IRS. The IRS is going to ultimately look at you like, well, you signed this off, so you are responsible. And
which is crazy because I'm sorry, but some tax forms, I mean, like, luckily for me, everything is simple. Like, I have 3 kids, my husband and I, and now that when I added my business to the mix, like I was a little nervous the first year that I filed, not because I would do anything wrong, but just because I feel like now I've upped the level, like, with my taxes. And I was like, I wonder how that's going to play off, at the end, because it is, to me, I mean, I understand the forms enough, but to me, it is a different language. Like, and that's why we hire someone to help us out. So,
yeah.
so the fact that at the end, if there's a mistake, it falls on us. That to me, that's a red flag. Like, that to me is like, I want to go to someone that I genuinely trust, not someone that's going to be like, next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, we professionals, we admit it, we make mistakes.
Everyone does.
But at least, for me, I own up to it. There are others out there that don't. So yeah, it's very important that you are, finding the right person to work with and making sure that they're doing it correctly. Because that is scary. When you mentioned that H&R Block offers this guarantee warranty thing,
I'm like,
should I worry that you're I don't know. To me, I just see
that big letters, and I'll never forget it. Like I'm looking at it again. Like, it was in big blue letters, and it was like, the H&R Block guarantee. And again, I'm not bashing H&R Block, but I'm sure other people, other establishments have it as well. But I was just like, guarantee. And as I'm walking to the car, I'm like, why are you guaranteeing what you just did that I just cut you a check for? I'm like, what just happened? Like,
yeah, no, I know. You start thinking, like, should I be worried?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I was like, okay. And speaking of red flags, like, what is a red flag that you want people to know about?
Ooh. I mean, we already mentioned one of them, but another one is, please make sure that the person you're working with will have their name on that tax return, because you'd be very surprised that on your tax return, if it says self-prepared, that means that the tax professional don't want nothing to do with you or with your tax return, and that's sad. You want to be very careful, because if you ever get a letter from the IRS and they are asking for additional information, or they called out something and now they're telling you owe a tax bill, you can't tell the IRS, oh no, such and such did this. The IRS is going to say, but it says self-prepare, so I don't know whether to believe you or not. So you want to be very careful that who you're dealing with, because they're considered as ghost preparers, meaning, again, they don't want nothing to do with it, and that's not a good sign, because you don't want to be alone in this. I mean, go ahead. The IRS will say, like, you can say whoever you want, you can blame whoever you want, but ultimately it says self-prepare. You signed it off. We're going after you only. So
I'm just like, I have to like pick my jaw up off the ground, because so you're telling me that someone will go like me, like, let's say I'm an individual, I don't have kids or anything like that, and I'm going to someone for the first time. I pay them, they do my taxes, but then at the bottom, I know exactly what you're talking about. On the bottom, it says the tax preparer. They'll put self-prepared. Like, if I didn't know anything about taxes and I paid someone, first, I would believe that they would do a good job. It's just like the naive part of, I think, most of us, in the trusting of someone with that exchange of service for payment. Then it's like, they're not even going to put their name on it. Like, if I'm looking at the document, I'm looking at, do they have my social right? Like, do they have like where I work? Do they have, like basic information that I know off the top of my head? And where do I sign? Like, do you have my routing number and bank account so you can deposit the return if I get a return? But to actually check to see that the preparer put their name on it, I wouldn't think that that's something that I have to make sure is there. That's crazy.
I've seen this a lot, and it's a very sad situation because I had one particular client who he paid this preparer to do his business return, and obviously he inflated the numbers. 6 years later, the IRS caught it. They saw some inconsistency. The numbers didn't make sense, so they reached out to him with a notice saying that he was audited. He was being audited for 3 years of taxes. That seemed off. And when he went to the office to deal with the audit issue, they did not hold back. They really grilled this person, and he got, after revising the tax return, he got slapped with a $25,000 tax bill. And
Wow.
He even said, like, I didn't do this though. Like, so this tax preparer did it. And again, no excuses though. They're like, they'll obviously ask for the tax preparer name. They said, let's just give us this person's information and we'll deal with it. But at the end of the day, you're liable for this. It's, you signed this off, you consented again with this information. So, and you were, and in a way, they know that you knew that he was inflating numbers. But obviously, you as a taxpayer, you don't know, because you're like, I just gave him my information. I didn't know he inflated. I had no idea. But yes, he did realize, like, yeah, at the end of the day, I did sign it off. But I should have been more mindful of what's on my return, and I should have known better. Know that this guy did not put his name on it. So now I don't even know whether they went out to that person or not. But yeah,
I would hope so. But I would think it's hard to prove. It's hard to prove. It's like your word versus that person's word. Like that's. Thank you for saying that. Honestly, like I know that's going to help someone. Okay, so I'm not going to mention Dave Ramsey, but I do have a question for you. Okay, there are so many financial people in this space, the big gurus, and a message that I keep hearing again and again from different platforms is, getting a refund is not a good idea. The concept that I hear is that, you're pretty much letting the government hold on to your money, your hard-earned money, interest-free until it's time to give it back to you with your tax refund. I have a thought on that, but I'd love to hear your point. So tax refund, is it a good idea or is it a bad idea?
It really depends on the person's situation. So let's say a taxpayer with no dependents, just him or her only. He or she gets a refund. That typically means that you overpaid the government through either your employer or through your business. If you made an extra amount on the estimated tax payment, you're getting that money back because you overpaid, again, at 0% interest. Now, for those who have dependents, sometimes it's out of your control. And what I mean by that is that it could be that you're paying enough, maybe even break even through your employer or through whatever source to pay those taxes. When you have those tax credits, such as like the child tax credit, if you have children who are in school, you likely qualify for the education credit. It could also mean too that you had earned a certain amount that qualify you to earn the earned income credit. That's something that you can't control. The government just sees that you met these criteria and they're just issuing you a refund for it. They're like, oh, because you qualify based on your your situation, we're gonna give you some money back. So it really depends. I understand, like, especially those who have dependents. It's really out of your control, and I can't bash anyone for that, because it's like, it is what it is. Like, but obviously for those who don't have any dependents and they're just aggressively just paying a lot to the IRS, you really need to change it. You need to change that up. You need to update your W-4. You need to make sure you're making the appropriate amount when it comes to your business too, like making sure you're not overpaying too much either, because again, you want to have more money in your pocket, because that money can definitely be useful to pay down debt. or can help build up your emergency fund, or hey, you can use it towards, building up your investments, so I have like, I'm like a little bit of both, but I understand from both sides why. So
Mhm.
yeah, but again, really
Mhm.
depends on your situation,
Okay.
but yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go on a tangent for a second because you keep saying the same thing in different ways. Like tax preparing is a personal choice. Like everything is personal when it comes to it. There's no like one way of doing things. I ask you, is it a good idea or a bad idea? Depends on the person. Like each client that you have has a different circumstance. I
Mhm.
really truly believe that personal finance, that's why the word personal is there, because it's personal. Like I don't, when I coach my clients, like, and I don't say to them like, these are the ways that you do things. Like this is like step A, step B, step B. Every client that I have has a different like plan of action depending on, do they have debt? How much high interest are they paying? It depends so much. Like the budget is personal, the debt payment is personal. So your answer to this question, I think, is fantastic because it's not cookie cutter. Like it's not, it's good or it's bad, or the government is holding on to your money. Because if I try to do that, like I have again 3 kids, a husband, a business. If I were to try to take a guess, and I do get a refund every year, but if I were to try to take a guess as to like how my deductions should change so that I make more money with each paycheck and I get less of a refund, I'm afraid that making that wrong choice could possibly get me to owe. And I would rather get money in, even if it's a little bit, than pay. Because again, maybe it's that whole trauma of like my first job, but I don't want to owe the IRS anything. I don't want to owe them anything. I'm like, never, never, never again. But it's a personal choice. And when I hear that advice out there and it's so like it's bad to get a refund. It's like, no, like I shared with you behind the scenes, like my husband and I, we didn't get the full child tax credit that we were entitled to when people were getting the checks. So we got a larger refund last year that we've never had before because of that, because we were owed that money. Like if had I planned accordingly somehow, I'd owe. Like if I tried manipulating the deductions, or I'd owe. And I never want anyone listening to think like, oh, well, it's bad to get a refund. Like I just feel like, like obviously you want to make the most out of every paycheck that you have, but there are deductions that change everything. My kids, they have prescriptions, they have copays. Like I have copays. Like, we have our medical insurance payments that we make. Like there's so many things that go into that, like that my geeked out money chart that I get, the financial chart that I have prepared every year. But everyone does have something different. So absolutely, I love that answer. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a great point that you pointed that out, because
Mhm.
literally when you file a return, it's a personal tax return. It's personal. So that's
Absolutely.
you
And
really
everyone's different.
that's a good thing. That's a good point. I'm calling that out to all my clients moving forward.
Oh yes,
And whenever someone try to compare themselves to another person, I'm like, no,
yes.
that's their situation. Yours is different than theirs. Don't ever compare. Yours is
Mhm.
personal. So
Yeah, the big gurus out there, there's the one I mentioned before that I'm not a fan of. There's Susie Orman who keeps things positive, but like an emergency fund is again, I don't want to go on a tangent, but an emergency fund is another thing that I feel is very personal, just like with personal finances. Like my clients that rent, they have less of an emergency fund than my clients that own their home, because if something goes wrong with your home, you're the landlord. Like that's on you, if something happens and you're renting, you don't need 6 to 9 months of an emergency fund. Even that is personal. So listening to these people out there that tell you like, do like this to succeed, it's like, no. And that's one of the reasons why I love your content, which by the way, I'm going to have all her links down below. You have to follow her on Instagram. you know I like making personal finances fun. That's why I'm never coming with like morbid topics. Like my thumbnails are never like, you need to know. Like, I keep things fun, because by having the right attitude, you can succeed financially. But your Instagram content, you're my favorite. Like I'm like, what's she doing? What's she doing? You make taxes fun, and I learn with your pieces of content, and I'm just like, no one else can make taxes fun. I'm sorry. Like, I love to see someone else try.
I
Like,
tried though. I really tried.
yeah.
It's a lot of planning.
Oh,
But
of course.
my
Yeah.
goal is to make taxes fun and also simple to
Yeah.
learn. Not something like out,
Mhm.
you got many people out there who talk with all this jargon. I don't do that. That's not my style. And
It's like
honestly,
the Excel spreadsheets and like when my husband used to chase me around with them, I was like, if you make it complicated or you make it boring, I'm sorry, peace out. Like, I'm
yeah,
good.
because our attention span is very small. We don't have time for any of that. So,
No,
and
no, not at all. No, so
like,
you got, sorry, I didn't cut you off. What were you saying?
no, it's boring. And I'm like, that's not my style. I don't like, honestly, it was
Mhm.
a struggle when I was learning about taxes. I was very fortunate that I had mentors who helped me and they actually made it easy to understand. Unlike the professor I had, oh my goodness, I was just like, and that's why I'm like, I'm never doing this to my community. I want them to at least learn something in a fun and simple way. So yeah.
Simple is key. Like, I'm the same way with my clients. Like, I keep things simple. I don't throw Excel spreadsheets. I don't do these like big number things that you're just like, oh my God, I've never managed because my clients come to me because they've never managed money before or because they've never done it successfully. And if I were to go to them with like an Excel spreadsheet, like this is how, and nothing, I'm not bashing Excel, but when you're learning something for the first time and someone's coming at you boring or strict or complicated, like, I'm sorry, like I know my clients and they'll be like, I'm out.
Oh yeah.
Oh, including me when I was first learning and my husband had this Excel spreadsheet for our budget. I was like, what language is this? And how can I understand it? It was yeah, no. So like one client I've had so far asked me for an Excel spreadsheet and I was like, just for you. Don't tell anybody. I'm not doing it again. Okay. I'm like, no, thank you. You have been fantastic. My last question to you is, and thank you so much, because again, like, you make taxes fun. We've laughed through this whole interview. Like, I love it. Um, I've asked all of my guests the same question because I feel like they get to know you and get to know like what really makes you like want to get a message out there to everyone that's watching. So to my viewers, what piece of advice do you have for them?
Ooh, okay. I would say that if you are planning on buying a home or getting a loan in the future,
Mm-hmm.
don't hold off on filing a tax return. Make sure that you have that well ready so that when you apply for a mortgage or apply for a loan, you have that tax return ready because they're going to ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you are filing that in on time. If you are a little behind, don't be afraid to go ahead and start filing them as soon as possible because the IRS does allow people to file up to 6 years of any back taxes. So it is fixable. So just so you know, just make sure that you're staying proactive in doing that because obviously, for those who are looking to just, again, rent out a new home or heck, even use a loan to start a business, you definitely want to make sure you have that tax return as well as any other financial documents that they're going to need. So that way you can start, being that new homeowner that you always been dying to be, or want to be an entrepreneur, or even looking to increase your financial portfolio. Make sure that you have all of your documents ready because it's going to be beneficial for you. Because there's no, believe me, no one's going to want to give you anything without any proper documents, especially when it comes to taxes and finance. You want to make sure that you are someone that they will be able to like trust and give you the money so that, because they're investing in a way in you. So you want to make sure that you have all the paperwork to back that up to know that, yes, you can trust me with this, I will pay it back. So, yeah, that's like one advice I would say, because I think it's really important, especially, again, for those who's looking to increase their financial portfolio, you definitely want to make sure you have all of that. Because I know I learned my lesson the hard way when I was trying to apply for certain things. They were asking for tax returns. They were asking for my bank statements. And I was like, oh my goodness, I literally had to go dig into, and at that time, TurboTax. I had to pay TurboTax to collect previous year because I didn't save them. So, but now I know. So make sure that you have everything saved and tied up in a little bowl for anything that may be required in the future. So
that's great, because like, again, like when I take in your advice and your content, like you always make me go left, so like when I was thinking about buying a home with my husband, the home we're in now, I thought of, okay, like I gotta check my credit score, like I have to make sure, like, like I have my pay stubs and everything to show like what I make. Like you wouldn't think, like I mean, to the average person that is not in your brain, like with your tax information, the tax guru lady right here, you wouldn't think buying a home tax returns. You know what I mean? So that's really great that you said that, honestly, because it really makes people think, like, yeah, it's not just about a credit score, making sure you get the right interest rate for when you're going to buy a home. You have to have your financial documents ready. Absolutely. Great. That's great. When my husband and I, we refinanced last year, and it was one of the best money moves we made, because we went from a 15-year when the interest rates were really low. We went from a 30-year to a 15-year. So we cut the time in half, and well, little less than half, because we were here for a few years, but and it only increased our payments by $200. But what really got to me was we are already living here. We never missed a payment. I always pay my bills early, if not on time. And so like we had like nothing negative like of our relationship with our bank, and we refinanced with the same bank because we really like them. I was like, why do I have to jump through hoops with all these documents? Like, who I am. I live here. Like, I'm like, I understand if I'm buying a new home or if I'm refinancing from another bank. I'm like, it's the same bank. I've been paying you for years. Like, I'm good, like, and they were like, oh, we need this, we need this, we need that. And I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah, well, they need to trust you that you're fine, that you're in a good financial place, because if not, then you're a risk, and they probably don't want to take that risk with you.
I know, but the funny part of my brain was like, wait a minute, I'm going from a 30-year to a 15-year. I'm doing this move, which saved us $40,000, by the way, off our mortgage. It was like the best money move I've made. But I was like, it's not like we're refinancing to take money, take money out. Like it literally was to pay less, you know what I mean? To take advantage of like the low interest that was being offered then. And I was just like, and I'm going from a 30-year to a 15-year. Like, if that's not responsible, like they were like, oh no, we still need you to sign all these forms, and we need all these tax returns from you. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's where my brain went when you said that. I was like, yeah, it is like they are trusting you, even if you've already been living here, you've shown yourself, like they are trusting you with that. So yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Okay, so Sonia is offering a 30-minute call. So if you want to book it, I'm going to have her link down below. Reach out to her. Like, honestly, if you think that this interview has shown a side of her, like you have seen nothing yet. Like when you consult with her, she's just amazing. She wants to educate. She wants to help you save money and make sure that you're aligned so that you continue to save money and be educated for years to come. And I send everyone her way. And the feedback that I get back was fantastic. One person, you saved like $6,000 off the bat. I was like, girl, take me out to dinner. Like, I was like, Sonia saved you $6,000. I was like, hey, yes. Like, you're amazing. And that's why I'm so happy to have you on. So thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that you want to let anyone know regarding your consult? Like, I'm going to link everything down below. And again, follow her on Instagram. You're going to love it. So
yeah. Yes, no, thank you so much, Debbie. Really do appreciate it. I do also want to mention, besides the consultation call, that I do have a free tax prep checklist. So if you guys want that, feel free to click the link that Debbie will be providing. Just sign up for my newsletter, and you all automatically will receive a free tax prep checklist that you can utilize for next year. Now that with tax season coming up in a couple months, you guys want to be proactive, definitely take advantage of that while it's still available.
Yeah, and I know you're going crazy now with everyone that filed extensions. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I thought this from the minute I started this concept of the series. I was like, Sonia's got to be on right away. So thank you so much for making the time. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Debbie. I really do appreciate it. It was great chatting with you. As always, you're amazing. And I can't wait to, continue on doing great things with you, because I know we have a lot of things coming up over the next.
I'm excited. Yes. If you think this, oh, forget it. Like we got more coming up. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And again, all of Sonia's information is linked down below. And if you guys have any questions for her, feel free to reach out to her. If you want to leave a comment, I'm sure she'll respond as well. And again, thanks so much, Sonia. This has been wonderful. Hope you guys have a great night.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.